Mark Reynolds, he answered, trying to keep his voice professional. Mr. Reynolds, please come to the 40th floor, said a crisp female voice. Mr. Stone would like to see you. Mark's heart raced as the executive elevator whisked him to the top floor, a space he'd never visited before. The doors opened to reveal a minimalist reception area where an elegant woman gestured for him to follow her. She led him through a series of rooms to a vast office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Gabriel Stone stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. "Sir, you wanted to see me?" Mark said, still holding his box of belongings. Stone turned slowly. "Your daughter is sick." It wasn't a question, and Mark was startled by both the statement and the slight change in Stone's tone. "Yes, sir. I need to get home to her." Stone nodded, studying Mark with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Put your box down and sit." Mark complied, perching on the edge of an expensive-looking chair, wondering if this was some kind of cruel final humiliation. "I lost my parents when I was 9, Stone said abruptly. "Car accident. No other family. I went into the foster system." He paused. "It wasn't good." Mark remained silent, unsure where this was going. "Your personnel file says you're a widower. Single father to an 8-year-old girl." "Yes, sir." "Emma." Stone walked to his desk and pressed a button. A screen descended from the ceiling, displaying the security footage from Mark's cubicle, his moment of despair captured in high definition. "Do you know why I fired you, Reynolds?" Mark swallowed. "Because I suggested terminating our relationship with Meridian without understanding its importance to you personally." "No," Stone said flatly. "I fired you because I wanted to see what you'd do." "I don't understand." "It was a test. One that most fail." Stone turned off the screen. "When I fire people, they typically do one of 3 things: they get angry and threaten legal action, they grovel and beg for their job back, or they immediately start calling competitors to badmouth Vertex." He walked closer to Mark. "You did none of those things. You thought about your daughter." Mark felt a flicker of anger through his confusion. "With all due respect, sir, my daughter isn't part of some corporate test." To his surprise, Stone smiled slightly. "Exactly the response I was hoping for." He returned to his desk and sat down. "I'm not firing you, Reynolds. In fact, I'm promoting you." Mark stared at him in disbelief. "I don't understand." "Vertex is expanding its corporate social responsibility division. We need someone to lead it who understands that business decisions affect real people with real lives." Stone leaned forward. "Someone who puts people before profits, even when it costs them personally." "And my presentation? The cost-saving measures? We'll implement most of them. Your analysis was excellent. But we'll keep Meridian for specific product lines and help them become more efficient rather than cutting them loose." Stone's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Loyalty matters, Reynolds. To suppliers, to employees, to family." Mark's mind raced to catch up with this sudden reversal. What exactly would this new position entail? "You'd oversee our community impact initiatives, educational partnerships, and employee welfare programs. Starting salary is double what you're making now, with flexible hours." Stone paused. "I understand that's important when you're raising a child alone." The implications slowly dawned on Mark. This would mean financial security for him and Emma. It would mean being able to be there for her when she needed him. It would mean a future. "Why me?" he asked finally. "You barely know me." Stone was quiet for a moment. "When I was in the system, there was one foster father, just 1 out of 7, who treated me like a human being. Who cared more about my well-being than the check he got for housing me." He gestured to the security footage. "I recognize that same quality in you." Mark didn't know what to say. Go home to your daughter, Reynolds, Stone said, his voice returning to its usual businesslike tone. My assistant will email you the details of your new position. You start next Monday. As Mark stood to leave, still dazed by the turn of events, Stone added, and Reynolds? The company has an excellent pediatrician on retainer for employees' families. I'll have her contact information sent to you as well. Mark nodded, finding his voice at last. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Gabriel, the billionaire corrected him. We'll be working closely together. As Mark left the building, his phone buzzed with an email notification. It contained his new contract, the pediatrician's information, and a personal note from Stone. The true measure of success isn't what you achieve, but who you become in the process. Welcome to the real Vertex family. That evening, as Mark sat beside Emma's bed, gently placing a cool cloth on her forehead while the pediatrician's prescribed medication worked to bring down her fever, he marveled at how quickly life could change. Just hours ago, he'd been facing financial ruin. Now, he had a path forward that would allow him to provide for Emma while making a meaningful difference in others' lives. Daddy? Emma murmured sleepily. Are you sad about your presentation? Mark smiled, brushing her hair back from her forehead. Actually, sunshine, something amazing happened today. I met someone who reminded me that sometimes, the hardest moments can lead to the best opportunities. Like when Mommy died, and it was the worst thing ever, but then we learned how to be brave together? Emma asked with the simple wisdom of children. Mark's throat tightened with emotion. Exactly like that. 6 months later, Mark stood in the backyard of their new home, a modest but comfortable house with the yard Emma had dreamed of, watching as Gabriel Stone pushed his daughter on the swing set. The billionaire had become an unexpected presence in their lives, a mentor to Mark and something of an uncle figure to Emma. Vertex's corporate social responsibility division was thriving under Mark's leadership, launching initiatives that provided technology education in underserved communities and establishing a foundation that supported families facing medical crises. The work was meaningful in a way his previous position had never been. Higher, Uncle Gabe. Emma squealed as Stone pushed her on the swing. Later, as they sat on the patio while Emma played with her new puppy, another recent addition to their expanding family, Stone confided in Mark. I never told you the full story, he said quietly. That foster father I mentioned? He died before he could adopt me. I went back into the system, but I never forgot what he taught me about compassion and integrity. Mark nodded, understanding now why Stone had taken such an interest in them. When I saw you in that security footage, thinking of your daughter even as your career crumbled, it reminded me of him, Stone continued. I realized Vertex had become exactly the kind of soulless corporation I'd sworn I'd never build. We were measuring success only in profit margins and market share. And now? Mark asked. Stone looked over at Emma, laughing as the puppy licked her face. Now I'm remembering why I started the company in the first place. To make a difference, not just a fortune. He turned to Mark. Sometimes we need someone to remind us of our better selves. As the sun set over their new beginning, Mark reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought them here. One moment of apparent failure had opened the door to something far more valuable than the promotion he'd originally sought. He'd found not just financial security, but purpose, and Emma had found an extended family in Gabriel and the Vertex community. The test that had seemed so cruel had revealed something essential, that even in our darkest moments, how we respond to adversity shows who we truly are. And sometimes, that revelation can change everything. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content that reminds us all of the unexpected ways life can transform when we're tested. Remember, it's not the challenges we face but how we respond to them that defines our journey. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what other life-changing stories you'd like to see. Mark's hands trembled as he clutched his phone, tears streaming down his face. I can't lose this job. Not now, he whispered, glancing at the photo of his daughter on his desk. Little did he know, the billionaire CEO who had just fired him was watching his every move through the office security cameras, and what happened next would change both their lives forever. Hey everyone. If you're touched by Mark's journey and want to see more life-changing stories like this one, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more inspiring content that reminds us all of the unexpected ways life can turn around when we least expect it. The morning had started like any other for Mark Reynolds. He woke at 5:30 a.m., careful not to disturb his 8-year-old daughter Emma, who had crawled into his bed sometime during the night after another nightmare. Since losing her mother to cancer 2 years ago, Emma's sleep had been troubled, and Mark had learned to function on minimal rest. That he gently tucked the blanket around her small shoulders before padding to the kitchen to prepare her lunch, a peanut butter sandwich cut into stars using the special cookie cutter Emma loved, apple slices, and a handwritten note with a silly joke. Today's read, "What do you call a fake noodle?" An impasta. It would make her roll her eyes and smile, which was all Mark wanted. The apartment was small but clean, located in a modest neighborhood that stretched Mark's budget to its absolute limit. The refrigerator hummed loudly in the quiet morning, a reminder that it was on its last legs, just like so many things in their life. Mark glanced at the stack of bills on the counter, medical expenses from his late wife's treatment, Emma's therapy sessions, and the ever-increasing rent. His salary as an operations manager at Vertex Technologies covered the essentials, but just barely. "Daddy?" Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her favorite stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. "Hey, sunshine," Mark smiled, pushing his worries aside. "Ready for pancakes?" Emma nodded, climbing onto a kitchen chair. "Can they have chocolate chips?" It's Tuesday, so, absolutely. Their little tradition, chocolate chip pancakes on Tuesdays and Fridays, gave structure to a life that had lost its foundation when Sarah died. As he mixed the batter, Mark mentally reviewed his presentation for that afternoon. After 6 months of working on a cost-saving initiative for Vertex, he was finally presenting his findings to the executive team. If approved, it could mean a promotion and the financial breathing room they desperately needed. Maybe then he could afford the science camp Emma had been talking about, or finally replace the refrigerator that sounded like it was preparing for takeoff. "Will you be home for dinner tonight?" Emma asked, carefully arranging chocolate chips into a smiley face on her pancake. Mark hesitated. "I might be a little late, but Mrs. Patel will stay with you until I get home. My big presentation is today, remember?" Emma nodded solemnly. "The one that will help us get a house with a yard someday?" "That's the one," Mark said, his throat tightening. He'd been careful not to promise anything, but Emma was perceptive enough to understand the stakes. After dropping Emma at school, Mark arrived at Vertex Technologies' gleaming headquarters downtown. The 40-story glass tower housed over 2,000 employees, but the top floor, where founder and CEO Gabriel Stone maintained his office, remained a mystery to most. Stone, a self-made billionaire who had built Vertex from nothing into a technology giant over the past 15 years, was known for his brilliant mind and exacting standards. Few employees had ever met him in person. Mark spent the morning finalizing his presentation, triple-checking his numbers and rehearsing his talking points. His colleague Diane stopped by his cubicle around noon. "Ready for the big moment?" she asked, perching on the edge of his desk. Mark nodded, trying to project confidence. "As ready as I'll ever be." "The executive team can be tough, but your work is solid," Diane assured him. "And who knows? Maybe the elusive Mr. Stone will make an appearance." Mark laughed. "I doubt it. Rumor has it he's in Singapore this week." At 2 p.m. sharp, Mark entered the executive conference room on the 38th floor. 5 members of the senior leadership team sat around the polished table, their expressions neutral as Mark connected his laptop to the projector. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "Thank you for the opportunity to present my findings on operational efficiencies within our supply chain management." For the next 30 minutes, Mark walked them through his analysis, highlighting the potential for a 22% cost reduction without sacrificing quality or employee satisfaction. He'd spent countless late nights on this project, often working after Emma was asleep, driven by the knowledge that this could be his chance to secure their future. As he concluded, the CFO, Janet Morris, nodded appreciatively. "Impressive work, Reynolds. I particularly like your phased implementation approach." The other executives murmured in agreement, and for a moment, Mark allowed himself to feel hopeful. Then the conference room door opened, and a tall man with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes walked in. The room immediately fell silent. Gabriel Stone rarely attended these meetings, and his unexpected presence sent a clear message: this was important. "Mr. Stone," Janet said, surprise evident in her voice. "We weren't expecting you today." Stone nodded curtly, taking a seat at the head of the table. "Continue," he said, his eyes fixed on Mark. Mark swallowed hard and summarized his key points again, acutely aware of Stone's intense scrutiny. When he finished, Stone leaned forward. "Your proposal suggests eliminating our relationship with Meridian suppliers," Stone said, his voice deceptively calm. "Yes, sir," Mark confirmed. "My analysis shows they're charging us 30% above market rate, and their delivery times have been increasingly unreliable." Stone's expression hardened. "Meridian was our first supplier when Vertex was operating out of my garage. They took a chance on us when no one else would." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't in any of the company records he'd reviewed. "I wasn't aware of that history, sir." "Clearly," Stone replied coldly. He turned to the other executives. "Leave us, please." The room cleared quickly, leaving Mark alone with the billionaire. Stone stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "How long have you been with Vertex, Reynolds?" "4 years, sir." "And in that time, did you ever consider that business decisions might involve factors beyond spreadsheets and percentages?" Mark felt his career slipping away with each word. "I focused on the data, sir. The numbers don't lie." Stone turned, his expression unreadable. "You're fired, Reynolds." The words hit Mark like a physical blow. "Sir, please, clean out your desk by the end of the day. Security will escort you out." Mark stood frozen, his mind racing to Emma, to their precarious finances, to the impossibility of finding comparable work quickly enough to keep them afloat. "Mr. Stone, I have a daughter." "That's not my concern," Stone cut him off, already moving toward the door. "Your severance details will be emailed to you." In a daze, Mark returned to his cubicle. His colleagues gave him questioning looks, but he couldn't bring himself to explain. With shaking hands, he began packing his personal items into a cardboard box: the family photo from Emma's 7th birthday, the "world's best dad" mug she'd given him for Father's Day, the stress ball he squeezed during difficult phone calls. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patel: "Emma not feeling well. School nurse called. Fever of 101. I picked her up and brought her to your apartment. Should I call the doctor?" Mark closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Without his job, their health insurance would end soon. Every doctor visit would now be an out-of-pocket expense they couldn't afford. He texted back that he'd be home as soon as possible, then sat heavily in his chair, phone clutched in his trembling hands as tears welled up. "I can't lose this job, not now," he whispered, looking at Emma's photo on his desk. What Mark didn't know was that Gabriel Stone was watching him through the office security system. From his private office, Stone observed the devastated father, saw the text message about the sick child, noticed the careful way Mark packed the handmade mug. 20 minutes later, as Mark waited for the elevator with his box of belongings, his phone rang with an unknown number.